Well, again, we had no clue. We were in a major flyover area.
Isaiah's like, we can make that. And I'm like, no, we can't. And then I'm like, we can make that. And you're like, no, we can't. And we got no clue.
So you cannot cover country the way you can in other areas.
Welcome to the Built to Hunt podcast, brought to you by the team of hunt advisors at the Huntin magazine, where we are dedicated to helping our members go on more hunts with better information. Join Huntin today at huntinfool.com.
Welcome. We have a few guys here in the office that have circled up together because hunting seasons are winding down for some of us and picking up for others. We're in the middle of Colorado seasons, but we wanted to circle up here and talk a little bit about our moose extravaganza trips this year. We've got Isaiah here with Brady. They went on a moose hunt together. Someday we'll see a film of that hunt.
One day. Keep waiting.
Garth, you went on your own moose hunt with some of your friends.
Mm-hmm.
They still your friends?
Oh, yeah, since they went on that moose hunt, they are.
Heck yeah.
Entrenched. They owe me.
That's good. So we got Garth here and myself, Austin. I went on a moose hunt as well with none of you.
But some of your friends.
Some of my
and
friends.
Family.
And my dad. And had a successful moose hunt as well. So let's talk a little bit about how it went, the differences, and your overall take on moose hunting in Alaska for listeners that are thinking about it, maybe thinking on going on another one, those sort of things.
Let me ask you this. First off, like the hunts that me and Jonah and Brady went on, they were general season.
Yep.
Just buy a harvest ticket. Then you print out your harvest tickets, you buy your locking tags. Yours was a draw hunt.
It was.
The difference between those two, because I've never been on a draw moose hunt.
Nope.
You haven't. Is this your first draw moose hunt?
It was my first one.
So primarily, because you guys shot big bulls, both of you, was it because of the draw?
I would say no. From what I've studied and traveled around Alaska, I think it's just like any other draw that you're mainly getting less hunters in the field. You're getting less permits, less pressure, but does it mean bigger, more trophy moose? No. You know, there's very few places in all of Alaska that are managed for trophies per se. It's just managed for hunting pressure. The unit right next door to us that was over the counter, general season, there was a lot more hunters, more camps, more boats, more traffic, if you will.
Yeah.
But a lot of them killed nice moose too because the moose are there.
Well, it sounded like yours was a pretty tough to reach area anyways, and usually those draw moose areas tend to be a little bit closer to cities, a little bit more easily accessible. But you still had an interesting time finding a transporter to even do the hunt.
And I think part of that is because it's a draw. So you've got a lot less people wanting to go, so there's less transporters providing the services to even get out there, right? Isaiah works with a lot of outfitters that provide drop-off hunts, transported type hunts, in addition to their fully outfitted stuff. Why are outfitters doing that? You see a migration to doing that more? Is it easier?
Well, I would say if I was doing it again, doing a true transported hunt with where the outfitter provides a camp, I think would be the way to go.
You mean camp gear?
Camp
everything.
gear, tent. They provide your charter flights in and out of the field. They provide the charter flights for picking up the moose. They provide your tent, your cots, your stoves, your fuel. I thought it was going to be cheaper to ship all of my stuff up, including inflatable raft, a boat motor, all of our gear, tent. I mean, we were, with three of us, we were right at like 1,300 pounds getting into the field. And then, so logistically, I had a plan way ahead of time to ship stuff up, and then had to have Kyle go to Anchorage and pick it up from Alaska Air Cargo, and then take it over to the other transport service to ship it.
Which, if you didn't know Kyle,
yeah,
and you had to have someone pick it up at Air Cargo in Anchorage, it's like, who do I call? An Uber to go get my stuff?
Which there are a couple guys now doing logistical stuff like that. But it was like, again, unless I had connections, it would have been super difficult because he had to take it, and then I paid one way to ship it via air cargo. Then it had to get picked up, and then I had to pay again to get it shipped to the outfitter's place. Then we had to pay
with another cargo company.
And then we paid individual flights to get out in the field per hour with a Beaver pilot. and then we're paying per flight to get our moose out of the field.
Yeah.
And then you're turning around and you're reversing that, and you're paying to get your head now shipped and your meat and your boat all back out to Anchorage to air cargo. And then, so again, it was just logistically, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we would have been
What do you think your savings were?
minimal.
Yeah, but he learned more.
Like is it? Is it 3-digit or
no? I would
4-digit?
say it was. We probably saved about $2,000, $2,500 at most
a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, which that's minimal.
And we had connections
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah, and so like if you're paying a logistics company to take care of some of that stuff for you, and we have an air cargo account, so it makes it much more affordable for us to ship gear up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there is more headache involved too, because you're dealing with stuff. You're hoping your gear gets there. You're hoping you make weight. You're hoping. There's a lot of hoping.
Yeah, I think realistically, I mean, we got out of ours, I think, a little bit cheaper than that for sure. I mean, we saved quite a bit on ours. But I think, one reason is we had 4 of us that split the cost. You know, we would split the cost of shipping all the gear up.
Yep.
So we split that 4 ways. And we didn't ship a lot more gear than you did with 4 people than you had with 2.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So,
And you didn't have I had 3 legs of flights to get
Correct.
to where I was going. I flew to Anchorage, and then we jumped on another charter with Lake and Penn Air out to Iliamna, and then from Iliamna we took another plane into the field. So it was 3 legs to get to where we wanted to
I mean,
go.
we had 3 legs too. It was just the first 2 legs from Anchorage to King Salmon was with the same airline.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to change. Yeah, commercial airline. I mean, we had to do the same thing once we got there.
Yep.
Then we hired an air taxi to fly us out to where we eventually were.
Let's talk about that difference a little bit. We'll back up just for a second to be clear, because these terms are interchanged, but they're not exactly the same. So an air taxi is a charter plane. In Alaska, I consider they have a Part 135 air taxi certificate from the FAA. It allows them to be an Uber driver, be a taxi.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to go? Point A, point B. Here's where I can land. Jump in. I'll charge you by the hour. I'll charge you by the flight.
And you're
whatever
picking
it
your
may
spot.
be. You're picking your spot,
Yep.
right? Here's 10 spots I want to go. Can you land there? Have you landed there before? You can ask those kind of questions, but they charge you based on the amount of flights. Oftentimes, that's what you use, Garth.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you use, Isaiah.
Yep.
Right.
And
Versus an air transporter. Is that where you're going?
no, go ahead.
An air transporter is same thing. They still have to be certified by the FAA, but they're also a licensed transporter. So they can provide not a fully outfitted guided hunt, but they provide that next level.
Mm-hmm.
They've oftentimes decided where they're going to take you in the field. They've designated a drop-off point, and they may have provided additional equipment or arrangements or given you a flat rate. Like it's cost $10,000 no matter how many flights to get in or out per person. That's just my set fee. That was more like the hunt I did with a transporter. He said it costs this much to rent a boat. You need 2 hunters, and we'll arrange your flights into the camp where you get the boat. That's all part of the package. That was more of a transported hunt.
The other thing that, again, I did all my own research all over the state before I ended up wanting to go where I wanted to go. And then I was like, okay, is this going to be a good spot? There's all the what ifs. You can't just run out there and check it out. And again, your pool of people that have hunted remote Alaska isn't very big, and no one wants to really give up their secrets. So through all my research, I decided this was going to be a good spot. I had talked to Kyle. We agreed it might be a good spot. We figured it was going to be way away from everyone. I researched the outfitters in the area, figured out where they were hunting, all this and that and the other. Again, more resources at my fingertips. We fly out there, and as we're making our way around the lake, and we've been in the air an hour, and you're paying per hour, so the longer it is, the more expensive it is. And there's already a camp there. So then you're making a decision in the air. Is this where I want to land? Because we could fly around, like he's like, hey, I have limited fuel. He made a couple banks around it, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, just put us down.
Which that could have been the nail in the coffin on a horrible trip right
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You don't know, right? And the air taxi, he wants to get you out of the plane. Like,
Yep.
sure, he was a nice guy and you had a
It
good
was
pilot,
evening. It was, it was.
They wanna be
we
done.
had some crunch time, and so he drops us off, and then we're like, okay, as we're unloading, another otter lands with another big group, and then so now it's just like more discouraging to where. If you go with, like you said, a true transport service, usually they have designated areas that are proven that, other transport services know, like, oh, so-and-so has a camp here and here, to where they're not stepping on each other's toes, to where it's not a complete gamble on, like, is this spot going to be good or not?
But there is nothing, I think it's what you said is true, but a transporter, he does not have exclusive rights
Correct.
to anything that he is doing. Yes, he has to be licensed on the land service where he's transporting people, if it's federal or whatever, to land there, but he can't keep residents out of there. He can't keep other charters or airplanes out of there, other guides. Like, a transporter, even though he has a past history of these camps that I've used, same thing on caribou hunts we've done.
Yeah.
It's more of a gentleman's agreement he
Yep.
may have if he's liked in the community to don't go there because so-and-so drops off hunters there every year. But it's free game. You're talking public land in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes we think, oh, it's Alaska. It's just wild wilderness for hundreds of miles. And I could see you and Brady sitting
Oh
on the
my
bank,
gosh.
vroom, vroom, airplanes flying over.
All day.
Well, again, we had no clue. We were in a major flyover area. And so it was like, and a popular lake for
Moose
there were,
hunting.
there were cabins there that we were
Yeah.
unaware of. It was a popular drop off for guys exiting the lake to go float to another area to get picked up. So the air traffic was insane. Like, I was like, you go to Alaska to get away, and now it's like we're in Seattle sitting under the runway.
I kind of got a
felt like
kick
that.
out of it because I'm sitting there at my moose camp because we kind of flew out at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at my moose camp, and I'm getting these texts from Isaiah, and he's like, seen any moose? I'm like, yeah, I've seen a few moose. How you doing? 3 camps just got dropped off today. No moose yet. And I'm like, yeah.
So one thing in Alaska, let's talk about mobility, right? Because when you commit to a moose hunt, you can't shoot a moose that far away from camp because you can't pack it.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought
Emphasis on the word can't, not shouldn't, but can't.
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 You probably can't.
Yeah.
Right? You can try, but it's going to be horrible. So we bring Brady. You guys bring Brady, your in-house boat master seaman.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So
Repair guy.
repair guy. So you take an inflatable boat, a cabote,
Yes.
and what was the other raft you took?
The Uncharted Rapid Rafts
Okay.
as a spare.
2 of those.
We had 2 of those, yeah.
So you guys think we're going to get dropped off on this lake and we got a motor, 25 horse on your cabote,
I think it was a 20.
20, and you're like, hey, we're just going to forget all these other camps. We're going to run up and down the lake, down the river, up the river.
Big plans for mobility. 'Cause
Yeah,
Isaiah's
mobility.
not a patient man.
So
Well,
what
the
happened?
problem is, again, we evaluated the rivers on Onyx, and bro science, and that
Going back and forth in the office, we're like looking at every different type of imagery, and
yeah.
Isaiah's like, we can make that, and I'm like, no, we can't, and then I'm like, we can make that, and you're like, no, we can't, and we got no
So
clue.
we had a prop motor,
Yeah.
and the river was, again, this was a high water year for Alaska too, but it was only like maybe knee deep
Mhm.
in some of it.
But like 50 feet wide.
Yeah, so the first morning we ended up pushing and pulling and dragging like
Just
half
grinding.
a mile up this river,
Going
grinding
up?
through silt
Or
Yeah.
down?
to try to
Up.
get up it.
Okay.
And then basically we're like, hey, if we shoot a moose up in here, it's going to take more than one trip to get it in and out, and we're just going to wear ourselves out by day 2. Like, this is pointless. And so we ended up having to, again, we were limited to our options, so we just picked a little knob that looked decent.
Well, we tried going downriver too.
Downriver, there was rapids and rocks. And
It was nasty.
Let me take this boat. You guys knew once you went past that, like, you're not getting the prop back up it.
Exactly, and you couldn't see through that water because it was all glacial silt.
Uh-huh.
So you get past, like, we passed a couple rocks that were showing, and you can see the water drop off, and we're kind of trying to peek, and
then it's like
yeah, really
the props hitting the bottom.
get us back up.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So now you're stuck on this lake, but at least you have a boat and
Yeah.
a motor to go around the lake and check on the other hunters.
Yeah.
There was, yeah.
Okay, so is that the discouraging point where you're like, oh, crap, we're stuck to this lake?
Yeah, I mean, it was, and it was warm, and we didn't see moose for again, it was literally unknown. Like, we went to a very unknown. Like, had no clue how it was going to be, and so it was discouraging. We had talked about moving, and Brady talked me out of it. and
Are
I
you
was-
like talking moving, like calling the transporter and say, or the taxi and say, hey, come in and get us, move us to a different lake?
Day 2.
No, it was day 3. We were to the point where I was willing to shoot a moose at any distance as if we saw one. Like, if
always
it's
a bad
a
thing.
mile,
bad.
2 miles away, we're gonna go kill him.
That's
That's a bad
And then,
thing.
fortunately for us, things picked up. The hunt progressed. By day 6, I think my brother shot a big bull, 67 inches, 500 yards from the lake, which made that pretty easy. That's when I realized it would have been a huge mistake to shoot one.
Is that the first moose you've ever seen dead?
Yes.
Your brothers?
Well, first Alaska moose.
Alaska
Yeah.
move. It's different than a Shiras. I don't
For
care. Like, they are completely different animals. It's like the difference between a spike elk and an 8-year-old bull.
Yeah.
And again, like,
in the country they're dying on
Yeah.
Right.
and around them in the water. And
I had heard stories everywhere in between where we didn't see any moose. We saw 10 bulls a day walk through camp. Like, you're seeing 3. So when you don't see any moose for 4 days, it's like, okay. Like, the rut's supposed to be kicking in. It'll get better. But it was slower. We did very well. We both shot great bulls. But it was a lot slower than I was expecting. Again, because I think you get this perceived idea you're going to Alaska, you're going in the middle of nowhere, you see these pictures, you see YouTube videos of all this, and you kind of build hype up around it, and then reality strikes, and you're like,
Then you're sitting there wishing you brought more snacks every day.
so you guys ended up camping in the same spot.
Yep.
Never moving your base camp. You put it around on the boat, or was
No,
your
we drove the boat for 2 minutes every morning.
to get up to your glass
Across the lake to hike up onto the same knob every day.
11
And
days.
you liked that knob because you could hear or you could see?
Both.
Both.
But it was our only other option.
Yeah.
It was the only little knob.
Surprised you never had any. Did you ever have any people get up there with you?
No, because again, like,
Did the other
I
guys
don't
have
know if I
boats?
was hunting moose incorrectly, but we were up there at gray light every day, and obviously you could see our boat from shore. And then an hour and a half after daylight, most mornings the other boats would come boating by.
Oh, and they'd see your boat, so they obviously.
And I
wasn't-
think their plan would have worked because both bulls we killed,
Every bull that we saw was between 9 and noon.
9 and noon,
Really?
and
Yeah.
a couple of them were on the shoreline of the lake, and so, like, I think they were just covering ground, like glassing from the boat, and if they saw one, they would just make a play on it. Well, we were
Because
up there.
you chose a big lake.
Yeah.
I mean, there was country to hunt around the lake.
Big Lake is. I mean, depending. The lake I chose was big.
Small ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like Groundhog Day. Every day you go up, you sit down, you rake, you call, you rake, you call, you sleep, you rake, you call, like for sun up to sundown. And hopes to see one.
But it
moose.
worked.
And we saw one moose almost every day
After
Caleb shot his. Or after that first little
Yeah,
one we saw.
yeah.
So really looking back on it, you can't say it was that slow, but it felt slow.
Well, when you're sitting in the same spot
Yeah.
all day.
Well, and
Oh,
again, like
you see
I'm
one moose.
messaging Austin and Garth was like, "Oh yeah, we see 4 bulls today and a bunch of cows," and it's like, That's when I was like, freak. I had the option to go where Garth was, and I pulled out because I thought this was a better idea. And now he's over in the hot zone, and we're over here freaking staring a hole in the same swamp.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's funny is you always look at the other side. Like, grass is always greener, right? I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, after some of your in-reach messages, I was like, oh, man, Isaiah screwed up bad. What an idiot. And then we're sitting there looking at all these. I mean, we were seeing more moose, but we could see miles.
Yeah.
And we glassed up a moose, a bull, that was legit 6 miles away.
Wow.
I mean, I was just taking a measure on Onyx when I was sitting there doing and I'm like, that bull has to be right here on this ridge. And you can see his pans. You can just see them, these big old paddles.
And based off of your previous year's experience, you knew you weren't going to shoot one 3 miles from camp.
No, and that's the bad thing is we got into that situation on my last moose hunt where we got desperate.
Yep.
Shot a moose where we shouldn't have shot a moose.
Spent the next few days.
3 days getting that stupid thing out because it was almost 3 miles away.
Oh.
So when I saw this moose up there, and I'll back up a little bit. Like, we had the same issues as Isaiah. You get into this situation, you can look at all your stuff on Google Earth. You think, okay, I can get my boat up here, get dropped off right here. It's going to be nothing to run up and down this river on the boat, and then we can hunt this side. And you have all these different spots where you're like, okay, I'm going to be hunting this, this, and this. We can't see anything here. But our main spot the reason we camped in this one spot is because we had a couple knobs adjacent to camp that we figured we could run out and glass from. First thing when we get there, we get dropped off on the other end of the lake, which, I mean, the lake was 5 miles wide, 13 miles long. So we had to boat all the way around the lake because they couldn't land on the side we wanted to because the waves were too high. So by the time we got around there and busted through the rapids going into the river and got in the river channel, now all of a sudden we got 2 miles to go up the river and we're like, oh, we'll get there easy. Well, like an hour and a half to 2 hours later, going up that current in a 15-horse motor, same thing. You get widen out, and you'd start scraping bottom, and then your motor's hitting. You got to pick that up, get out, drag your raft up. So we got to the spot we wanted to camp, but again, like our plans changed after that.
Yep.
Because we hit that spot, got everything set up. The next day, we went to run up the river and kind of explore some new country. Made it up there 300 yards. Took us about an hour. We were like, okay, this is dumb. Like, we're not doing this. So now we're sitting in the same spot, just like Isaiah. Every day we'd walk out to the 2 or 3 same points we had, rake, call, look around. The only difference was we could see so much country around us.
You didn't have pine trees like he did.
No. I mean, there was a few, but very, very few. So we would see a lot of moose. I mean, I say a lot. Like, we would see on average between the 2 groups of people that were out glassing both knobs, 4 to 6 cows, sometimes more, and then maybe 2 to 3 bulls, sometimes more a day. And 9 times out of 10, every one of them was too far to go after.
Yeah. But you had the lake.
We
and
did.
You still had your boat. The river's out, but you could go up and down the shore?
No, you couldn't. Because every single time, so just remember, if you go down that river,
Every time you're burning.
you're about 45 minutes down the river going down it.
To get back to the lake.
To get up to your camp at night, you're going to spend another, 2 hours. And what's crazy about this is the one thing about those river channels, that river would go up and down. It went up one time and raised about 8 inches. And then it went down over 1.5 feet. That severely screws you when you're trying to get up and down that. And now all of a sudden what you could get up was easy peasy. Now you're dragging your raft through half of it.
Ugh.
So then you get down to this lake that's 5 miles wide and 13 miles long. I mean, it's a giant lake. The first thing you look at is the wind's usually blowing in, like when we were there, the wind usually blew in on the offshore, so it was rolling waves when you would come out of the channel
You feel
into
like
the
you're
lake.
on the ocean.
I mean, poor Cody, we were trying to get out of there.
He get seasick.
Well, we rolled out of there, and we had an inflatable raft. Well, the waves started crashing up over the bow because they were getting too big, too bad.
Jeez.
And so basically filled his boat up to where the inflatable floor popped up
Oh my!
behind him. And so they turned, and we just both turned and head to shore, and that's where we camped. I mean, when we were leaving and come out of there, but that's the problem when you're on a big lake, you got big waves. If
Big
that
waves.
wind's blowing 10 miles an hour, probably too big for you.
Or if it
How
picks
big
up,
were your
right?
rafts?
14-foot and a 15-foot inflatable. So, and we had 15-horse motors. I mean, they went fine,
Yeah.
but it's not like you're like skipping across the top of these
No.
whitecaps going over there, you know.
And again, you're in the middle of nowhere, so your caution level rises a little. You don't want to make stupid mistakes and end up in a bad situation.
Well, it's just like any Alaska hunt we've planned. You tend to scout, like on Onyx 3D, like we would scout a Colorado hunt or a Utah hunt. We're like, look at this valley. You know, we get on this ridge and we could glass this valley and then bounce over to this mountain. And you get there in Alaska, you're like, I can't make it like anywhere. This takes forever. The swamp, I didn't realize I have to cross 3 sloughs to get anywhere, or the trees or the down timber or the thorns or the alders. Like, I'm stuck. Like, your circle that you can hunt, your radius is a lot smaller than you think.
Like even the grass where when you're searching on Google Earth, you're like, oh yeah, this is obviously alders right here, so you want to avoid that. Well, here's your grassy areas. You can just cruise through there. Well, it's like freaking sedan grass. It's like up to your armpits, or sometimes it's over your head, and you're like,
There's brown bears hiding
Yeah.
in there.
Uh-huh.
so you're thinking the only reason there's a trail through that grass is because a bear walked through there or a moose. So you
So true.
you cannot cover country the way you can in other areas.
Yeah, Austin's up north in his yacht, just putting the
Just
rivers.
cruising around. There's a
Unreal.
bull. You want to shoot that one? Nah, there's
Yeah.
a bull.
Hey, we did not see near as many moose as I thought we would. Draw area, we get there, the transporter, it was a sweet operation. He had very nice, clean, brand new boats. He's got a brand new all-wheeled boat for us, 16-foot flat bottom, and a brand new Red Devil 40-horse motor on the back. And the Red Devil's like what those duck hunters use. It's made to go in mud. It's a mud motor. And so it's got a big beaver tail with 5 big fins off the bottom so you can drag it through, and a real heavy-duty prop that you can rev it pretty high. It doesn't go very fast, but it's heavy-duty. And so he gives us this boat, and we're like, man, this is pretty sweet, brand new. 2 hours on the motor. And we're like, well, we can run up this river. And they say, yeah, go as far as you want to up this river. It's shallow, though, so you shouldn't see anybody else up there. And we're like, well, this river seems kind of big here. So, but we went 80 miles in their big boat of river. Then we got in our little boat, loaded all our stuff with the 3 of us, and then we went another 60 miles up river miles, which you know how windy those stupid rivers are. But up this river until we realized no one's coming up here unless they're in a boat just like this, because you could not drag it. We were going through 10 inches of water sometime,
Oh,
and
wow.
that flat bottom would skip off the sandbank, and the motor, you could feel it lift the motor up, skip over the bank, set it back down into the rocks and the mud, and keep going. You know, we could run in really shallow water where it was a new experience for us. I kind of became the designated driver, and we could only go about 8 miles an hour upriver.
Is that
But-
because your dad and Larry were drinking?
Yeah, no, but we let them drive, and it was a lot of work to manhandle that river when you're hitting
Yeah.
logs, and we were going around sweeper trees and around log jams and through the rapids, and just trying to decide that river, which side is the deepest, reading the ripples and everything, was a pretty wild experience.
I guess you probably wouldn't want to be like with a jet. Obviously, you're on step if you have like a jet outboard.
Yeah.
But then if you get a moose in there,
You're
you're not getting down.
Yeah, and I think being on step on that river would be pretty scary.
Oh, really?
Because there's enough logs just under the water and enough
Oh.
really shallow sandbars that, I don't know, you'd bounce over them. So, yeah, we were never on step. We just plowed along for 60 miles, got up where we found a hill, to Jonah saying, we are going to go glass from this hill and we're going to see for miles. Well, turns out 5 days later we realized the moose never came out into the open up there. It wasn't rutting yet. It was September 15th, but it was kind of late this year. And so every moose was within 500 yards of the river in the willows, just like moose do, standing in the willows, eating, raking trees. We thought for sure we could call one into one of these open meadows and see him, see how wide he is, sneak in on him, shoot him. Never once saw a moose in the open.
Wow.
As far as we could see from that hill, as many times as we called, wait all day, nothing.
Now, did you guys set up a camp just offshore, like on a gravel bar or something?
Yep, so we just took real light.
Would
right?
you,
so
would
we
you set up
had,
camp each night?
Each night. We had Kuyu, Mountain Star, and a Storm Star tents. We didn't set up a cook shack. We never set up a tarp. It was just eat your peak meal, crawl in bed. The next day, load up. Because when you're on a river like that, you start getting worried. If I go down river and my motor dies, how do I get back up to my camp? You're just toast.
Yeah.
You can't walk back up to your camp, and you can't paddle upriver.
Yeah.
So that scares you a little bit when it's kind of like floating, right? You're not
Yeah.
going to leave your camp if you're floating a river. So we just always had our camp with us.
Yeah.
We could motor up and down, but you get worried. We had 60 gallons of fuel on board, so we burned a lot just putting up and down.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Like, just we had a couple. Well, we took Storm Stars as well, and then we had a bigger tent that we kind of use as a base. But that is the one thing that I think I learned off this trip, which isn't like how bougie do you want to get?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we took some pots and pans so we could cook some potatoes, and we fried up some fish and some moose meat. So we took a lot of things that, hindsight, looking back at it, I'm like, man, we probably could have shaved 100 pounds of stuff if we just would have went light. And the difference, like when you're looking at it, saying, okay, this is how much weight we're putting in this boat. Because the bad thing is we had both those boats. When we put them when they dropped us off, we put them on the shore of that lake and started driving. They were full. Like I was halfway going, I don't know how the hell we're going to put a moose in here.
Yeah.
And then we had to bring 2 moose out. Actually 1 moose out when we broke down camp. We were going to have to make multiple trips.
Yeah.
And we did not want to fight that river going back up it with that shot. Because it rained every day a little bit on and off.
Not hard.
But not enough to raise that water level. So it just kind of gradually kept dropping. And you'd start to see salmon heads poking up. Like, oh, God, that's a new one. It's getting lower. But what happened is we came out of there. And luckily, the last moose we had to pack out, we had to get around to the beach, and then we parked and camped on the beach, and then walked in and got that other moose. But there's no way we could have come out of there with a moose, 2 moose, and all our gear.
Yeah, you definitely have to think about that when you're moving. Like the river, the boats, it just makes a ton of work for everybody. It's just work.
All hunt long.
Dude.
Yeah, but going light to finish your point. I like doing that, but I'm used to it. I'm used to a 2-pound Ziploc per day with my peak and my snacks, my lunch, and that's what I eat for the day. So I don't feel like I need all the other stuff. But a lot of the hunters that went with our transporter, they treated this moose hunt like deer camp. They shipped up totes of their whitewall tents and their stoves and their alcohol and they were going to have a fun, nice camp. If you shoot a moose, great.
Yeah.
And to each his own. That's what some people want to do. It's their getaway, right? They want to just go up and have a good time with their friends and have lanterns and all these solar panels, and heck, they probably even brought a Starlink. I don't know. But
That'd be cool.
if you want to be mobile and you do have that option, like you're saying, I would say go light. You just get used to putting your sleeping bag in your tent away, and let's sleep somewhere different tonight.
I got thinking about that one knob. It was about 1.5 miles from our camp that we'd hike to and glass from. We'd see moose every single time. If I had to do it again, I'd probably just take my tent, break it down. So make it so I didn't have so much crap, right?
Yeah.
I would still probably take that extra tent, that community tent, because it is nice. You can put all your gun, like when you get back to camp, you put all your stuff that you're not using, your pack, your gun, and things like that. And you can keep your tent a little bit more cleaned up. But I was thinking I'd just run that tent out there, set it up, and then just wake up in the morning and start glassing and calling. I don't know. I mean, I guess
Trying to do a burrito.
A what?
A bear Rito in your little tent.
Yeah. Them bears up there, luckily they weren't as aggressive as the black bears that Joner had at his tent.
Yeah, our only bear problems between the 3 hunts was a black bear.
It's so crazy.
And we had a bear fence. We just chose not to set it up because we didn't think we were going to have any bear problems.
And a black bear comes in. I'm going to show these guys.
Isaiah taught her a lesson.
Yep.
Yeah, that is the one.
She's in the freezer.
Do you think you killed the bear that bit your tent?
I doubt. There were so many black bears. It was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a chance, but not likely.
It was killing this black bear kind of retaliation for what they did to your tent?
No, that was being bored and wanting to shoot something.
You had
Because
some
you hadn't
serious
killed a
drive
moose.
to shoot that black bear.
We hadn't shot. We had shot one moose the day before, and then the next day we were kind of back at camp because the pilot was coming in to get the moose meat picked up and whatnot, and so I was like, well, we shot a moose over there. We made noise or sense all over. Might as well go check something else out tonight. So we went for a walkabout and realized that was kind of pointless. Right. And so we were just putting around in the raft across the lake and saw a bear and decided to make the most out of the evening.
But what that means is let's turn this into an 11 o'clock night.
Of course it did.
Yep.
Because it was too far away.
Find the bear at dark, drag him back to camp, skin him by a fire.
Again, more work.
Just work, man. So that's where I think you're nuts, Garth. And I think you might be lying to yourself a little bit because I believe Austin when he says he wants to go light. But I don't think I believe you when you say if you were to do it again, you'd rather have less.
It's because I have bougie
amenities.
friends.
Are they going to listen to this?
What are you talking about?
Cody's bougie. He likes to take
True.
pots and pans, and he takes a fold-out table.
Yeah.
Did he bring hair gel and everything up there?
Oh,
I don't think he
geez.
brought hair gel. But I do want to go light. It's not because, heck, I don't mind going light.
But imagine day 8.
Oh, no, day 8 would suck. If
Yeah,
you're going that light.
you're not going to want to be out there.
I felt like our
And it's
setup
like, what
was
are you
pretty
doing?
ideal.
Yeah.
It's fun.
We had the
Yeah,
Sky
we
Dome
did
6P with
great.
3 of us and a little stove in it, and we were in this little covered area. We built a little porch out,
Nice tarp
awning out in
vestibule.
front of the tent, so it was comfy. There was really no complaints.
And we didn't have extra weight really. All we had was jet boils, but then we brought a pan and some Idahoan potatoes and some seasoning.
Over the jet boil you cooked?
Over the jet boil on a pan. But it does not take much weight or cost to make your life a lot better.
Yeah, I guess you're right on some aspects of that. It just seemed like there was a lot. When we went to break down camp, I was like, oh, my gosh.
My kind of rule in Alaska from not a backpack hunt like a sheep hunt. Sheep hunt, everything needs to be in your backpack. You need to be able to stand up and walk off. I think when you're going on a hunt like this, you should be able to stand up and carry all of your stuff at once, say from your drop-off point to your camp. And that could be your backpack's full, you got a duffel here, you got a chair here, but at least you can move it. It's when you have to start making 2 trips that I'm like, you probably got too much stuff.
2. I think when we were hiking up on that bank, we had 37 trips.
Yeah, that's too much.
That is too
Like
much.
we
every-
were just shuttling stuff.
Every night we would, and we had a frying pan, we had a 2-burner stove, we had a
Yeah.
little, so we could cook some moose meat after we killed. But
Exactly.
when you hit the beach at night to camp, grab your backpack, grab your gun, grab your duffel bag of your camp gear, and you walk on the shore. And
Yeah.
everybody's kind of independent. It's not like, oh, go get this, go get this, it's too much when you're doing that.
I think the difference is we had I would say community bags where it's okay, this is shared equipment. You know what I mean?
The co-op.
Well,
It's always
it
a
wasn't
mistake.
the co-op.
It's
It
always
wasn't
a
the co-op.
mistake.
Co-op snacks?
No way.
No way.
Well, it turned into co-op snacks because Jonah didn't bring crap.
He went
I
light.
did
He went
fail.
light.
I brought the same snack bag for 12 days.
The same exact food in it?
Yeah, I was like,
Oh, that's right.
Like 12 days
silly.
of the same?
yeah, I had a jerky bar and
No, you got to mix it up.
gummy bears and top ramen. And one of those was very disappointing because the top ramen didn't have any seasoning in it.
That's the funniest thing.
And if you've ever had top ramen without seasoning,
it's-
it is terrible.
It's gross.
Silly.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, we took a bunch of seasoning packets and
You only need one thing of
some
seasoning.
fish breading.
Oh,
I mean, we took cooking oil. Honestly, like, we took a lot. We took potatoes.
Like real potatoes?
Real potatoes.
Oh.
Onions.
That's got to be the worst thing ever to take is a real potato.
You're paying
for
like
the weight to
by
calorie.
the time you got those up there, it's probably like $300 a bag.
Well, we got them there, right?
Yeah.
Because there was a little AC right there, so we got them there. But here's the thing: is when we got up there and we got everything out, we started cooking. We had not had any problems with bears, and there were some big friggin' bears that were walking right by our camp. I mean, they were tracks like I've never seen. They were just huge, and I'm like, we haven't had one problem with a bear. We had a bear fence up, but I'm like, why are we gonna sit here in our camp and cook up fish and moose meat, spread that all over the place, and then we're going to have a problem? So then I was gun shy, and I'm like, I don't know if we want to cook all this food. I don't even know if we want to use this cooking oil and these seasonings. And so
The bears don't care about the seasoning.
no, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if we weren't going to be cooking fish and moose meat and stuff like that, we wouldn't have needed the seasoning. We wouldn't have needed the oil. We wouldn't have needed that stuff. It honestly made – there was enough bears there that were big enough. It made me a little nervous to be cooking stuff in our camp, even though I had bear fence.
Did you ever have problems?
Not once.
That's good.
I feel like a bear is going to smell raw meat just as well as they'll smell cooked meat. And it ain't quite like a
Do
person's
they know the
nose.
difference?
Yeah.
Well,
like they're not like,
here's
ooh,
the
that
thing,
smells
though.
perfectly done.
Medium rare.
You know what you do? Like you know
Bougie
what you do
bears.
when you go bait in a bear? If you go out there and you dump a bunch of Jello out or marshmallows or spread it around, is there a difference between that and putting it in a pan and like cooking it and getting that scent going up all
True.
over the place?
For sure.
So I think there is a difference.
What I'm saying, though, is they smell you.
Brady's
Anything
just saying
nearby.
they're going to know you're there anyway.
Yeah.
If they want to
Yeah.
come in, they're coming.
The cooking ain't going to taunt them or stop them.
You weren't there, Brady. You don't know.
You didn't have any problems.
I did not. So that is true.
Okay, let's talk about a couple good takeaways. One I was going to lead with is combo hunts. Right? So many people we talk to are like, I want to go on a moose hunt, but I also want to hunt caribou, or like try to combo these, and most of the time you're sacrificing the quality of your moose hunt to do that. Now I'm talking Alaska, right? I'm not talking British Columbia or something, but on an Alaska hunt, I'm going to say if you want to go on a moose hunt, plan a moose hunt.
Depending on where you're going, get a wolf tag if you need one, or
Sure.
a black bear tag. But
But don't try to like piece this together
No.
with a caribou hunt, or while I'm doing X, I want to also go
well,
moose
if I would have
hunting.
been able to buy a caribou tag where we were going, I would have, and we saw exactly 0 caribou.
We saw a sheep.
We
Should have got a sheep tag.
same thing with ours. I mean, we saw caribou,
Yeah.
but we couldn't buy a tag.
It wasn't open
It
where you were at.
No,
and,
well, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
and ours was wide open for caribou where I was at, but I'm like, caribou don't live in the willows. And I'm not going to walk through 2 miles of swamp and sloughs and deep water to go try to find a caribou that may or may not be there, because where I was hunting was flat as a pancake. I didn't even use my binoculars hardly. Once we figured out that the moose were on the river, the binoculars went away, rangefinder went away, spotting scope and tripod was useless.
Yeah.
We were hunting with our ears and our eyes, and that was it.
Yeah,
So-
and I didn't even. I'll take 9 times out of 10. I didn't even take a spotting scope with me. The only reason I would take a spotting scope is to video something.
Yeah.
We could see forever, but if you're looking up there with 12-power binoculars, you can tell that's a shooter bull or if it's a decent bull.
Yeah.
With your binoculars at 3 miles.
That's right. Okay, last thing, let's wrap up with, we were talking about price, right? What to expect as you start planning one of these hunts. They're not getting any cheaper. Isaiah knows that. Isaiah's got fully guided moose hunts now that are pushing 40,000.
Some over.
Some over 40,000 in Alaska. Barf. But
Most.
why does it cost that much? Outside of demand, we all know.
Even as being a booking agent, man, these prices are inflated, even on like transported moose hunts. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of freaking work that goes into those things.
Yeah.
Like they have to barge fuel up. Their fuel's $10 a gallon. They're paying pilots, plane maintenance, insurance, running a camp, the fuel in and out of the field, time in and out of the field. Like it's like there's not a lot. Like they're not cashing in like fat hog on these hunts at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's getting expensive up there. Just
Like our pilot, he said his plane insurance is like $73,000 a year.
Yeah.
oh, it's a huge
It's
expensive.
a pretty good overhead.
Oh my gosh.
Holy hell.
Just insurance.
Yeah.
So it's like
screwing
at
them
the
on
end
that.
of the day, prices have gone up, but a lot of that's just due to the inflation in Alaska itself, like, and what it takes to get fuel and food and like stuff places
Yeah.
up there.
You really are paying for logistics,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we were saying. When you plan your own hunt, the logistics are the messiest part. Because like the little town I flew into, sure, we flew on a commercial flight on a prop plane. You land in this village. Now what? Just that little simple logistic of how do I get from here over to the float plane that's going to take me to camp?
Yeah.
It might only be 2 miles, but you can't do it. You don't just put all your stuff and your totes on your back and just go walking down the road. You don't have cell service a lot of times in those villages. There's no Uber you can call. There's no taxis in a lot of these little places. So having somebody lined up, the guy shows up in a truck I've never met before, never talked to before. He says, hey, your transporter said I'm supposed to meet you here. I'm going to charge you $50 a person to take you over to the float plane dock. All right. Open your wallet.
There's another 50.
Another 50. And it's those little things that add up, and then you get stuck there. And he's like, well, I got a bed and breakfast you can stay in. It's $250 a night per person. That seems outrageous, but that's what it costs in these little villages.
Where are you
to
going to
stay.
go?
Yeah.
You're going to set your tent up?
Yeah.
Like, it's those little things that add up. And so when you're paying a transporter for a pre-packaged hunt, if you will, or you're have somebody up there to line those things up for you, it's worth a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And just those little dots that they can, place for you.
Well, even then, a big eye-opening experience. Like, if you're going to Alaska, you need to plan at least a day on the front end and a day or two on the back end. Just for, again, because we got back to Iliamna, and it was like, okay, now we have all this gear. Unfortunately, because of connections, they're like, oh, I can call Lake Pen Air, and we can try to get a bunch of your stuff out tonight because those planes run on weight. And if they have a full crew of people tomorrow, like, they can't get all your stuff out at once. So we were shuttling stuff out that night, and then the next morning, and then we flew out, and then we got to Anchorage, and it's like.
But the way out includes the 2 moose that we killed and the moose meat that we wanted to take back,
Yeah.
which you can't plan for, really.
Yeah, but what are you going to do with a moose?
You don't know how many you're going to kill. Yeah, that's the thing.
don't
Is
know.
like our meat plan was all improvised.
Yeah, it was like we shot one moose early on, and it gets out of the field, and then, again, we have a point of contact, and they're like, I can't store this meat for you. What am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I have people I can donate it to. Perfect. Go donate it. Fortunately, when I shot my moose, we flew out the same day with it, so the next day we were able to totally debone it. We donated part of it, and then we flew some out with us. But, yeah, we get back to Anchorage, and then it's like, frick, now we're going to go find a rental. So we got a F-150, and then that guy
Load
meets
it to
us.
the brim.
Then we load that up, and we're dropping a boat motor off, and we're at Home Depot, and
There's
then we're
so many.
at Fish and Game, and it's
And
like
then
every-
cargo.
Every time a hunt
Yeah.
like that in Alaska completes, I swear I look back, I'm like, that was a miracle that all worked out.
I know.
Like, how did all that work? You see those guys show up in town, and they've got all these black trash bags full of 700 pounds of meat, and they don't know what to do. They don't even know who to call. They're like, crap, I didn't plan this very well, but I was trying to save some money. And pretty soon they've rented a rental car, and there's trash bags of meat in the floor of the rental car, and you're like, what are
it's
they
a
doing?
Mess. Like, that's the one thing that, luckily this year, we were able to communicate with our air taxi. And when we did it before, they were the same way. They were like, hey, if you kill a moose and you come out with it, then you can have the meat. Like, then you can cut it up. But if you're not coming out of the field, like, we can donate it. We got people that'll take it. But if you want to keep some, you got to come out of the field because we have no place to put it.
you can't
they're not
assume
gonna handle it
people
for
are
you.
going to do that work for you.
No.
You
It's
can't just
so much work to move a hind quarter.
Well, that's the big thing that I did this year is I was able to get an expediter that actually took care of that. And what was nice is I'd prearranged with our air taxi and said, hey, is it okay if we kill a moose, if you come in and get it, can we pay the dock hands or something like that to take that up to, a transport to get it to Anchorage, and then have the expediter take care of it. And basically the first moose we killed, he took it over to the cutting or meat shop, had it cut up. When it was done, shipped it all out to. I mean, it cost us. Don't get me wrong.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
but it worked.
But it worked. And when we got back out into Anchorage, we didn't have to rent a truck.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have to go take care of this. We didn't have to go take care of that. We basically just went and shipped everything out. Little different than yours because we were on the same. Like we could ship it from where we were.
But again, what would you do without an air cargo?
Oh yeah, you're kind of. I mean, yeah, you have to.
Unless you go fully transport.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or hiring an expediter like you did to take care of all. And it's not that much money to get what you're getting out of it.
It's worth the value.
Well,
for sure.
That thousands of dollars, I would have had to pay that to ship that meat back anyway. Like, not thousands, but I would have had to pay a portion of that just to get the meat shipped back. We got figuring it up as like, okay, if we come out with that moose, we go to Anchorage, we cut it up, right? Because we have to break it down so we can put it into boxes to ship it out. We have to find a place to store that meat that night.
Yep.
Then we have to rent a motel or an Airbnb or something that we can stay at. So that's going to be another expense we have. We're going to have to rent a truck so we can take that from there over to the cargo company to get shipped. Like by the time we got figuring out, it's like we might save a little, but it's going to be like the same amount. I mean, it's going to be the same percentage-wise that Joner saved going DIY versus transport.
But it's funny when you're shopping transported hunts, whatever that cost is or price is of their transported package, you can almost double that. And that's what you're going to pay all in from your flights to your tags.
Oh, yeah. Just
your travel, your extra. Every time you turn around, there's $500 for shipping this or $500 for baggage
for a
fees.
hotel, man.
Hotels. Yeah. So plan with caution. I always think planning with one other person and a non-hunter is probably the smartest. 2 hunters, 1 non-hunter. But 3 hunters, I think, is good. 4 is definitely a crowd if you're all going to have 4 tags.
We had 4 with 4 tags.
And you got 4 moose, right?
3.
3.
After the 3rd, I didn't even want anyone to look around with their binos anymore. I was like, don't even look at it.
I think that's a lot. It's not like a caribou hunt where it's like, yeah, we could do a group of 4, 5, 6. That'd be fine. Like a moose hunt is a lot.
It is.
If you're going to apply in the draw, I always recommend a group of 2 for any of those Alaska adventure hunts. Might as well have a buddy to split it with, and you both have tags transported. Be careful what you're looking at. Make sure you're very clear of what's included, what's not, and expected charges on the back end. But we can share so much more about our moose hunt, Brady. Like
I don't even
hunt
feel
stories.
like
we didn't even talk about. We didn't even talk
No.
about hunt stories.
It's
Like
just- But we talked about logistics because that's the biggest thing.
it is.
Yeah.
It's the biggest hang up that
Yep.
people have on planning. It's the reason people push it off.
Mm-hmm. It's a reason you
And-
shouldn't go, and for a lot of cases.
Right.
Here's the other thing. Fortunately, we all had good weather.
Oh my
We did.
gosh!
Yeah.
We got out in with 2 hours of good weather window.
And a day of food left.
And there was another group of guys that our transporter was supposed to go get that ended up sitting there for 3 more days
Oof.
because of weather.
I swear. When we got out of the field, like when that plane left the water and we got in the air, I just turned around and looked at Cody and I'm like, dude, I can't believe we're out of here. I can't believe that worked. Like, there's no reason it should work out.
Yeah, that's back to the miracle thing.
No, and
It
you
is
can
crazy.
be mad all you want or upset, but I mean, some pilots take risk, but they're being cautious because they don't want to make a bad decision.
Dude, I would rather have a cautious pilot anymore that says,
Oh,
hey, I can't come
no
and get
kidding.
you, than someone that's like, yeah, them white caps down there don't scare me, boys. Get ready.
That's how you have to go into it. Just good attitude, roll with it, and realize even though we talk logistics and everything you can plan for, there's going to be 100 things happen that you could not have planned for, and you just have to roll with it.
Yep.
You thought you could go up the river 10 miles. You couldn't, Garth. You thought you could go down the river and hunt away from all these people. You didn't. You camped in the same spot and built fires. Like, everything changes. Right? You don't know what to expect. I thought I could find all these moose out in the meadows. Nope. I ended up finding them at 10 yards in the bushes.
But what's crazy is it all worked.
It is
For all of us.
Yeah. Like it's pretty crazy.
We put in the effort though.
A lot of attitude.
Lot of
Attitude does play into it. Like, you guys could have gotten easily frustrated. I could feel the frustration
I was
in your
playing
in-reach
therapist
messages.
over here.
Yeah.
Petting his head. It's okay,
It's
buddy.
okay, we'll find one. And then a giant one comes right
Well,
out to the lake.
That's why, like, after Caleb shot his moose, I was like, I really want to go explore, but I know, like I told him, the best thing we could possibly do is just sit here the rest of the hunt.
Sit here and
And
call.
wait. And it worked.
And it worked.
And that's hard to do. Very hard, especially when you're used to hiking and going. And
But after the first moose you get a hold of and you kind of get your arms wrapped around what it's going to be to do it, you're like, no. I mean, that is the one thing with 4 guys. Dude, we could get that moose out of there in a couple trips. Like, you could shuttle it out of there. So it made light work. But even 3 makes it light work. But it was crazy how much that 4th person's like, holy crap, this is
a lot
cool.
of work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is cool. Well, maybe we'll do a part 2 podcast of moose adventures and talk about how many times Jonah shot.
Ooh.
That's a short story.
Things like that. Talk about the actual killing of moose. But hopefully this inspires you to want to go to Alaska to plan a trip sooner than
Or
later.
not.
Or buy a Shiras moose tag and shoot it off your 4-wheeler.
I feel like if you're not deterred by this podcast, you've got it. But if you're questioning, maybe don't go.
Don't go. Go on an antelope hunt.
Everyone needs to go once.
You do. And that's the
Yeah.
one thing, like, Jonah, I think the reason the frustration was kicking in so much is because it's expensive. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort to get out there. And then you get out there and you start to realize this might not come together for me and I might have to go back. It's like, oh, crap.
Yeah, this is way above our normal hunt budget.
And it's not that fun of hunting. Like,
It's my least favorite of all my
you're not
Alaska
having
hunts.
a
Here's
blast
the thing,
every
though.
day.
If
It's
you
so
were to ask me
boring.
right now, we're November, that was September, I want to go back.
I'd go back. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about it. I talked to Austin about it the other day. I'm like, the way prices are going, like, this moose hunt's probably going to be one of the cheaper hunts if you can put it together and have the connections to do one of these air taxi hunts and do all the logistics yourself. Like, compared to a transported hunt, even for caribou, even
it's
for
getting
like
crazy.
blacktail, it's wild.
Well, the way Alaska's going, there's not going to be a DIY moose here any long
I
after many years.
Yeah.
wouldn't
But
doubt
moose populations are good. It's the
Yeah.
only species in Alaska doing okay, depending on where you're at in the state. But sheep is down, caribou's down, everything else is.
Yeah, black-tailed deer. Black bears are good. Grizzly bears
Black
are
bears
fine.
are good.
Oh yeah, the bears are fine, but they're cute, so we can't kill that many, and you need
That's
a
why
guy.
some of the other populations are doing bad.
Yeah, wolves are good.
Wolves are always good. So, well, thanks for listening today. Definitely reach out to Isaiah at Huntin' Adventures if you want to book a guided hunt. All these logistics sound like too much. Write out the $40,000 check, and he'll get you on a moose hunt. Or he has some transported options as well with outfitters we work with. You want to plan a DIY hunt and need some leads on how to get started with that, we're definitely writing some blog articles, going to provide some stuff in the magazine, and you can give us a call here at Huntful. And someday we will get to watch a movie of Isaiah's hunt that Brady puts together
Spring 2024, I think.
in the spring, huh?
Probably be the first one I work on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Good. I hope you have him frustrated before he
I've
kills
got
his moose.
tears. I've got
There's a lot of
smiles, I've
emotion
got
on
all
that.
of it.
Emotional hunting with Isaiah, Joe.
I will say that was probably the most up and down emotional hunt I've had in ever.
That's good.
I feel like that's a Montana thing. You and Jared got
Oh.
some serious messaging flowing.
Wait till you watch the video.
We can get you on pills for some of that. All right. Thanks for listening.